I'm going to talk about 3 different headphones, all under $500. I'm going to compare their build quality, their comfort, their sound, and which one is my favorite. Got the Sennheiser HD 660 S2. We got the Meze 105 AER. Is that upside down? 105 AER. And we've got the Sivga P2 Pro. So sit down, grab a cup of coffee, and let's talk about these 3 headphones under $500. Build quality. Okay, so we have very different headphones here. We have one that's completely made out of plastic with a little bit of metal. I don't even know. Nope. All plastic for the Sennheiser 660 S2. We got one that's kind of a combination of, I don't know, plasticky composite material and metal, and that would be the Meze 105 AER. I don't know what the AER stands for. Then we've got one built out of wood, wooden teeth. Do they still make those? Metal and gray material. Okay. Build quality. It's got to go to the Sivga P2. The other ones are built okay. The Sennheisers probably feel the absolute cheapest, but I have no doubts that they'll last a long time, considering that, well, Sennheiser's Sennheiser, and they've been selling plastic headphones for over 30 years, and it seems to be working out okay for them. Meze also has a very good reputation of building very good headphones, but if I'm picking the best built headphone, it is the Sivga P2 Pro. Comfort. Well, there's 2 of these are very comfortable. The Sivga P2 Pros are very comfortable. They have a friction fit thing for the headband right here. Not too much clamping force. If anything, they're a little bit large on the clamping force. But overall, fairly comfortable. Yet heavy. That's where the 105 Pro from Meze come in. Got an elastic headband right here. You put them on and they feel good. Perfect amount of clamping force, perfect amount of weight. They're lighter than the P2s. I think this is the most comfortable out of the bunch. Sennheiser, feels like my head's in a bit of a vice. So very strong clamping force. A little bit of pressure right here on my cheekbones. A little bit of pressure up here in my brain housing unit. And my ears touch the drivers, which I don't love. The Sivga P2 pads are kind of a combination between material and then fake leather. Mezes are kind of like this fake suede. Sennheisers are kind of like fake fur, something like that. Also the ear pads. These come off like the regular headphones, so there's a little bit of a flexible kind of fake leather around it, and then there's a little bit of a channel right here, and you just wrap it around there. It takes a little bit of time to get used to, but once you get used to putting them on, you can put them on. Same thing for the Mezes. Sennheisers, I have no idea how they're put on because it didn't feel like they were coming off, and I didn't want to force it. So if you want to change out ear pads, chances are you're not doing it with the Sennheiser. You can do it with the Mezes, but I think all of their ear pads are just fine. Sivgas are thinner at the top than they are at the bottom, but they're good. The most comfortable one out of the bunch, in my opinion, is the Meze. Bass, sound quality. I think the best bass is probably coming out of the Meze 105 AER. It seems like the most accurate bass. It's not heavy-handed. There's a lot of detail in the bass. I listened to Sad But True by Metallica. I've been listening to all of these headphones for quite a bit, but today I really compared Sad But True by Metallica and Just What I Needed by the Cars. I don't feel you coming, wasting all my time. The Sennheisers felt like they had a little bit of fullness in the upper bass, but they still felt fairly detailed, and I could hear a lot more detail in the bass line on Sad But True from both the Sennheiser and the 105. The Sivgas felt like a little bit bloated on the bottom. I just couldn't hear a lot of detail, especially in the upper bass. But if you're a bass head, if you're listening to, I don't know, electronic music or something like that, I think the Sigvas give you the most volume of bass. Whether or not it's quality bass, well, it's not compared to these other two. I'm not saying this headphone sounds bad on the bottom end. I'm just saying it's a little bit thicker, a little bit bloated, a little bit fat. Mid-range. Really good on the 105 Pros. A little bit cool on the 105 Pros. A little bit cool in the upper mid-range, a little bit warm in the lower mid-range. So there's a bit of a handoff, but it still feels coherent. So it wasn't like distracting or anything. And the only reason I can really hear a difference is because I'm running a bunch of headphones, 3 headphones right after the other. Not necessarily the most accurate, but my favorite mid-range would be coming from the Sennheiser HD 660 S2. Is just something magic about Sennheiser. They know what they're doing when it comes to mid-range. And I review mostly speakers, and the speaker that sounds the most similar to the Sennheiser HD 660 S2 would be something like the Q Acoustics 5020. Something magical in the mid-range. I'm not saying that it's neutral like you'd be getting from a monitor headphone, but it's a lot of fun. It's very addicting. And there's something absolutely 100% unique about these Sennheiser headphones. Coming in at third place would have to be the Sigva P2s. Again, with that oomph on the bottom, you're covering up some of the detail in the mid-range. And compared to the 105s and the 660s, they just weren't as clean. Bit of a veil over the mid-range. If I'm picking one headphone for mid-range, the winner would be the Sennheiser S2 HD 660 S2. Treble. The amount of treble varies greatly amongst these headphones. If I was ranking these on just the overall amount of treble, third place would go to the Sennheiser. Second place would go to the Meze, and then the amount of treble would go to the P2, Sigva P2s. I'm not saying that's the treble that I like though. Overall, I think the winner for the treble is the 105 AERs from Meze. They provided a bit of spice, but not too much spice like the P2. These were just a little bit sizzly. Now that's okay. If you're an older person and you've lost a little bit of that high frequency listening, then the P2 definitely could be the headphone for you. The one thing I did not like about the P2 when it comes to snare hits, especially on Sad But True, pa 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 pa, that part. These didn't sound natural. Sounded fun, sounded good, but not natural. Then there's a cymbal hit right at the beginning of the intro of Sad But True. It hung out for the longest with the P2s, but it felt overly elevated and therefore not necessarily natural. The most natural I felt was the 105s from Meze. I still feel it's a little bit elevated, but the snare drums were not nearly as in your face as they were with the P2s. And the hangout on the Mezes was just perfect. Felt natural, slightly elevated, still pretty good. The Sennheiser HD 660 S2, you could hear it, it hung out for a while, but it just feels a little bit veiled in comparison to the P2 or the 105. Still sounds pretty good, but just feels like it's in comparison. Final thoughts, I think overall the best headphone for the most people on this comparison would be the Meze 105 Pros. I think they're neutral enough and they're not overbearing in any specific region. And I think they sound real nice, coming in at $400. Apparently there's some trickle-down technology from these, which are the 109 Pros. I wear these quite a bit. I think these are a little bit more neutral than the 105s. I think the 109s are also built a little bit better, maybe, but you're still getting a very good headphone and probably, I think, the most balanced headphone in this comparison. The second headphone that I would grab would be the HD 660 S2. There is something very magical This headphone has a lot of personality, and that personality is happening in the mid-range, and I think it's also happening in the soundstage. It just seems a little bit more organic, a little bit more lifelike when you're listening to the music. The P2s just kind of felt like everybody was in line when they were performing any of their music. It's built really well though, and if you like treble, it's got a lot of it. However, if you like mid-range clarity and bass quickness, probably not the headphone for you. But as a planar magnetic, it sounds pretty good. Also, the 105s were the easiest to drive, then the P2s, and then the Sennheisers. I was running all of these off of the SMSL MDA-1, raw MDA-1. It's a DAC headphone amp, puts out plenty of power. But if you have $500 to spend and you're in the market for a pair of headphones, I like all of these headphones, but for different reasons. If you don't mind a little bit of bass bloat, but you still like a ton of detail, these can be EQ'd a little bit too. And take a look at the Sivgas. You want personality in the mid-range with a little bit of a laid-back top end. Not necessarily the best fitting, not necessarily the best built. Then take a look at the Sennheisers. I wouldn't call the Mezes like the clear choice or the clear winner, because I think it depends upon what type of music you're listening to and what type of presentation you want from your headphones. I don't think anybody's going to be offended with the 105s. 3 different choices, all fairly good headphones. If I was just going to listen to one long term, and this is going to be kind of counterintuitive, it would probably be the Sennheisers. Even though I think these aren't built nearly as well as the other ones, even though they aren't as comfortable, they've got this personality that kind of separates them out from the other two. And I did EQ the Sennheisers, and I got them to kind of be where I wanted them to be. But as far as like top end realism with cymbals, Mezes are better than the Sennheisers. Alright, that's pretty much it. So if you want to support the channel, you can sign up for Patreon, patreon.com/cheapaudioman. Also, if you like this video and you got this far, please consider subscribing. And if you made it this far and you want to know more about Sennheiser, I just got back from Ireland. I toured the facility and I actually built this headphone right here. I will link that video right up here. Check it out. It's a fun video. Trip to Ireland. Awesome. So, don't binge watch anything on Netflix or Hulu. Binge listen and fill your soul with happiness. And with that, I'm Randy. I'm the Cheap Audio Man.